begin the class with a little review of the previous YouTube lesson that we did. And it starts with set up your studio in a designated space that is your clay studio. It can be movable. It's a board with canvas stretched on it, but the idea of having a place to go and actually work, quiet time, this is a good idea, good practice. So, what's in the studio? The board, 30 by 30 if possible, heavy fabric stretched over it, canvas is preferable. You want a small container for water, big and small sponges, variety of tools, shaping, texturing, drawing pad and notepad that is going to be used in the creation of a journal that will accompany this class throughout the whole session. If you want your clay sooner than, I believe, the end of this week, Georgie's is open. If you call in your order for clay, they will do a curbside delivery. Just go into the parking lot, call them, tell them you're there, and they'll run it out to you, being safe, of course. So that's just a little review of what we did in the previous film, setting up your studio. And I want to come back. I noticed in reviewing the film myself, there were a couple blank spots. Basics, the foundations of what clay is about. Most of you may know this already, and if you don't, well, this is a good time to learn it. So, clay. There's different stages in which we can get our clay. This is a clay body, combination of a number of different clays made by Georgie Ceramics. And at this stage, it's moldable, it's soft, I can pinch it, I can roll it, make it into a coil. At the next stage, after being moldable, we're looking at water evaporating from the clay, and it goes through a variety of stages in which you can add to it, decorate with it, and glaze with it. So these are terms that I'll be using throughout the course. Moldable is soft, leather hard. This clay right now has moisture in it. I could add a piece onto it, I could carve into it, but it will hold its own form. It's no longer bendable, it's not moldable. I can't make it into one of those little pinch pots. I could construct with it though. So leather hard, the last drying stage before it goes into a kiln is called greenware or bone dry. And it really does look like bone dry. You can see the color difference in it. At this stage, it is quite fragile. I'll step over on this side. At this stage, one can break it down, add it to water, and recycle it. So I'm just going to let that soak down for the duration of the class, and I'll come back to it and show you how you'll be able to recycle your own pieces should you decide you want to reuse that clay. Okay. So now I'd like to weave into the fabric of this class, talking about a number of different things. I want to echo back to journaling, that as part of the requirement of this class, it's going to be essential that you keep a journal for yourself. And it would be a record keeping of the processes that you're working with, hopefully a record of ideas or dreams that you may have that can be transferred at some point into clay or into a more elaborate drawing. I brought this one out. It's kind of special. I purchased this in Oaxaca, and just is such an inviting thing that you want your journal to be your friend. we have a lot of confusing and difficult times that we're dealing with right now. And it's nice to have a friend to come to and just doodle with, write notes down. Don't try and make sense of it. Try and follow a stream of consciousness. And at the same time, use it to record some of the technical information that I'll be talking about. So I did not make this, but I just wanted to show it as an idea of possibly making something for yourself that will be your good record keeper. So that's on journaling. Now I want to step back to the ceramic process. As I had mentioned in the initial presentation about the different stages that clay goes through as it dries. And this stage is called leather hard. You can see that it holds its shape. Now, leather hard, it is still possible to actually construct work, design work, using the material when it's very much, its nature is more, I guess, akin to wood, the way that you can handle it. And depending upon your idea for what it is that you're developing, this may be a time in which you prefer to work with clay. This is going to be required for advanced students to make one hard edge slab construction for one of the assignments. So I have pretty much a right angle cut here. I'm just gonna kind of follow out with an idea that I picked up on last week when I was preparing clay for myself. Usually I'll start before I begin working and just doodle with the material and see where the material can take me and lead me. I'm just making random cuts on this right now to go forward with a demonstration. Anytime that you can create a right angle, the piece will stand on its own. So I'm gonna have to really score these edges well. Both on the pieces I'm adding onto and the piece that's being added to. Go for a fork that has nice sharp prongs on it. This one is usually used for probably olives or hors d'oeuvres, but it does a very good job of roughing up the surface. And this is essential, especially when you're doing leather hard work. If it's not scored up, it will not stick. And this is true of most materials. When you glue things together, you abrade the edges on it in some fashion. So you can see that I have moistened the edges here. I'm going to come in on this one. And I'm scoring not only the bottom edge, but a little bit on the inside. Apply pressure to join it. So I gotta score this edge. A little bit of moisture. And apply pressure. And usually what I'll use is a wooden rib of some sort to really apply as much pressure as I can. It's a little bit easier on your hands. And now that I have it fastened on the back side, I'm going to come to the inside with a coil of clay and reinforce that joint. Applying pressure. And I want to feather that coil from top to bottom. And once again, devil is in the details. This will take a little bit of a while to work one surface into the next to get a strong joint on it. But that's the basics of constructing with hard edge, hard slabs of clay. Important to apply pressure outside, reinforce with a coil on the inside, dry it slowly. If your edges start to dry before the bottom, which they will come apart. So the trick with this type of construction is to dry it slowly. So I want to echo back to the initial piece that I did last week. It's now bone dry. Little sketches, and this is what we're going to be doing for a while till we figure out what it is that we want to do with the material. So working off of the principle of it's not really hard edge, you could see the clay had some softness to it, but still had that contained feeling. And this was just a little coil animal that just fell apart, be that as may. It's a sketch following kind of a stream of consciousness that clay can be very useful to understand the material and yourself and your relationship with the material. So this was last week. After 1 week in isolation, I started to feel kind of contained and a little bit like a grumpy dog. So that was last week. This week is different, and I guess next week will be different once again. So welcome to clay class. Do a little bit of experimenting. Pinch that clay, coil it out, try your slabs. So meanwhile, I guess it's important that we stay separate. I'll just give you a hug over the air. See you later. Okay, here come the notes. Okay, so assignments. Cut a chunk of clay about 2 by 2 or 2 by 3. I see I have a chunk of clay here that I had been working on. Leave it to dry to leather hard stage. And then go to your journal and draw an image or pattern that can be carved into the clay itself. So the clay itself is about 1.5 inches thick. You have some material to work with. You think of it as a 3-dimensional piece. We have a front, a back, we've got sides. Once it's bone dry, in the next session, I'll show you how to use this as a stamp in moldable clay. So, for advanced students, hard edge construction, score well, moisten with slip, dry slowly. And videos, reading, and presentations to follow.